Welcome to What Matters, the podcast bringing solar insights to light. In each episode, we explore the real challenges behind why solar projects stall and uncover practical solutions with industry leaders, engineers, and innovators. From performance optimization to site selection and engineering, these expert conversations will enable smarter decisions for a larger impact on the future of solar. This is What Matters, powered by PBKs. In today's episode, we're shining a light on one of the most critical but often overlooked parts of solar projects, mountain systems. They are the backbone of every installation, shaping not just the design, but also the costs, timelines, and long-term durability. To unpack it all, I'm joined by Alice Thomas and Seif Gomaa from Solarport Systems. Solarport is a UK-based manufacturer with the capacity to deliver over 3 gigawatts of solar mountain systems each year, and they're backed by warranties of up to 40 years. What makes them stand out is how they combine smart design, local manufacturing, and new innovations to give developers and EPCs a real edge. Alice, Seif, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So let's start with some introductions. Can you both share a bit about your roles at Solarport and what first drew you to solar?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Alice. I'm a technical solutions manager at Solarport. And I've always loved the idea of being part of something that makes a difference in the world. And obviously being in the renewables industry means that we're making a massive difference, towards a sustainable future. And I just find that really motivating. Yeah, such a great feeling to be a part of it.
I'm Seif Gomaa. I started at Solarport around 3 years ago. I am currently a systems engineer. I started as a design engineer, and I'm drawn to solar because it's deeply fulfilling for me. One of the things that I find great about this industry when it comes to working at Solarport especially is the amount of projects that you get involved in, and it's deeply fulfilling for me when I travel across the country and I see multiple projects that I worked on everywhere across the country.
I love that. Yeah, you both touch on something that we hear a lot in the industry, which is basically purpose. It's not just engineering or business, it's like legacy building. And I have to say, even with my kids, it's something really special about pointing out when you're on the road and being able to point out a site and say, I kind of help power that. So it's kind of like a tangible impact.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly.
So in terms of Solarport, I know that it's carved out a really strong position in the UK market. And so from your perspective, what would you say is the biggest competitive advantage of being a UK manufacturer?
So I'd say to start with lead times, the fact that we are based in the UK, that all our manufacturing plants are in the UK means that we've got shorter lead times than, say, if you're delivering from abroad. It's just not about the initial deliveries as well. If there's any issues on site where you might have missing something or, there's some spares that have gone missing or you need some spares, then we can deliver those within a week. And also just the quick response times, we're always on hand. We've got the office in the UK as well, so we're able to respond within a few hours. We're right on the other end of the call, and we also have an in-house team of field operatives, which means that they can attend site if necessary. If there's any sort of questions or anything, we're there on hand to help straight away. So I think that's one of the things that we've heard from our clients a lot is that we can be there and, we are always available to help when needed.
Yeah. And two of our company values as well is first that we succeed through our customers and that we care deeply. Both of them, we apply them on a daily basis when dealing with our customers. And this shows in the customer retention figures that we got. I think most customers that we worked with, they always come back to us for this service.
Lead times, yeah, that's a huge one, especially as projects are getting bigger and more time sensitive. Having that local manufacturing and the in-house field team really gives you something that, global supply normally can't afford or can't offer, which is that agility. So, having your team respond quickly, fixing issues in real time, it really keeps that customer trust. And I also love how Seif tied in your company values. We succeed through our customers and we care deeply. It's really a great reminder that service and engineering don't have to be separate things. They kind of have to be part of the same promise.
At Solarport, we're very passionate about our customer service, and we want to make sure that whatever the customer needs, we'll make sure that we do it, and that's why we do care deeply.
That's great to hear. And you've both been close to customers and EPCs, right? So looking at the big picture, how has the mountain system industry evolved in the recent years?
It has grown so much. You see bigger and bigger sites every year, I think 10 years ago, 10 megawatts was massive, and now 500 megawatts is what you're looking at. That's really, really huge. But there's just so many different requirements for sites now, and what we offer, for example, is different foundation options. So whereas a few years ago, you might have just been looking at a conventional piled system, we now offer ballast solutions or gabion baskets, which would be for non-penetrable ground, or an X-anchor solution, which is for landfills or where you can't go beneath a certain distance below the ground. So it's, just adapting to these new requirements. And I think as well, you've seen a lot of sites or orientations of sites evolve. You might have seen a lot of landscape sites back in the day, but now you're looking more at like even foreign portrait we see sometimes. So, it's really grown.
Yeah, and also I think one of the things that I saw as well the industry progress in is adopting a lot of different tools that became industry standard, and it made our lives a lot easier, such as PV gates, for example. It streamlined our work with layouts. Layouts was a little bit of a hard tool to communicate with customers on, because everyone is using a different tool. We have to translate the models that they create into something that is we can give to the customer. So it's a little bit it was a little bit different, but nowadays most of our customers, they use the same exact tool, which help us a lot in working on, let's say, for example, layouts. And the second thing that also we saw the industry progress to is sourcing and sustainability when it comes to procurement. So sourcing the right materials and ensuring that this material came from a sustainable source is also important to us nowadays compared to years before.
Yeah, that's fascinating because it's not just bigger sites these days, it's more complexity too. So I imagine that having that multiple foundation options that Alice is mentioning too, so ballast and X-anchor and gabion, it really sort of changes how adaptable this new sites can be. And then I also think it's great to hear that sustainability is also coming into the picture, material sourcing, design efficiency, and even, I guess, recyclability becoming part of how developers make procurement decisions. So thinking about, the capacity expectation for the UK, I think it's supposed to triple in the next sort of 10 years or so. So I'm assuming that mountain structures will play a huge role in making that possible, especially in less than perfect land.
Yeah, definitely.
So if we now zoom out a little bit, how would you say that design practices have changed compared to 5 years ago? And for example, what is different today in terms of expectations and requirements?
So I'd say that the client expectations are much greater now. We warranty requirements or design lives, for example, standards is normally 25 years. We're seeing 40 more and more now. And that's why we put so much emphasis in the pre-installation phase of the site. So we always recommend, carrying out the site investigations, doing the pull-out tests, making sure that the corrosion assessment is in compliance with the DIN 509. That will, just help customers. Well, it will tell customers how the ground reacts to the steel, and also, the topography, again, which we can apply on PV case. And making sure that that's all done beforehand will just stop any sort of surprises on sites when you get to that installation. Nobody wants that. It causes delays, it causes extra costs. But if you do all of that work beforehand, it mitigates so many problems coming up later on. And we see that in our customers, how much they've adapted and grown, and it's great to see it go that way.
Yeah. And also documentation. Documentation standards have tightened a lot more, which is something great for the industry from my point of view. Developers now, or EPCs, they require full traceability of material, of the design standards that we're using, your code validation, and risk transparency, which is something that we always make sure that the customer understands the risk behind any of the sites that they are working with. And this risk can come from either the documents or site surveys, for example, that they sent that might not be as accurate as our standard. And stuff like that, we always make sure that we keep our customers aware of it.
With these longer design lives and these sort of new requirements that have come in, you see sites that are more corrosive or more difficult ground. One of the things that we ensure we do as well in that pre-installation phase, in the engineering phase, is ensure that that site will stay for the whole 40 years. We don't want it to fall down within 20 years. So that engineering beforehand is so crucial to having a good ground mounting system.
I was going to say, that it feels like such a shift from the pre-installation work that used to just be kind of optional, and now it's really the foundation for everything. So I love that you mentioned the corrosion assessments and the pull-out testing, which might really sound like technical details, but I think they're really the difference between a system that lasts, as you say, 10 years to one that lasts 40.
And as Seif said, the documentation traceability and Eurocode validation, those really aren't just compliance boxes. I think it's more like how do you build trust with developers and EPCs and investors. So I'm glad to hear this. And we also hear a lot about design becoming a real strategic advantage. Why do you think visibility and optimization matter so much for developers?
I think, again, it's all about mitigating any risks before the installation phase begins. For us, one of them, again, is the pre-construction design process through the topography. So, what we'll do, again, on PV cases, we'll look at that topography that the customer has sent us, and we can see how the terrain reacts to the system that we are looking at offering. And that'll enable us to split tables where there might be some sort of dips or lumps in the ground. If necessary, we can move tables, but it just enables us to then discuss this with the customer, before anything goes onto the ground, maybe even months, sometimes maybe even a year before they look at installing it, and they can really be informed on what the site is like. And, just having all of that idea beforehand is just going to help so much when it comes to the installation.
Yeah, exactly. And also layout design now impacts yield, cost, constructability, not just aesthetics, which people thought about before. So optimization tools and visibility through like 3D design software enable early detection of shading, grading, and pile clash, for example, issues. But also to a point that developers, for example, they use layout quality and the quality of the design as one of the differentiators when bidding for land. So I think it's definitely a strategic advantage when your design quality is up to standard.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, layout has gone from a drawing on a screen to a bankability factor. And then the fact that you're using topography analysis to catch issues before they happen is really a smart move, because I think every hour saved on pre-construction can mean days saved on site. Developers, I think, used to compete on price and location, but now I think from what you're saying, they compete on design, which I think it's a great evolution.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild to think that even just a few centimeters of gradient difference across a site can impact yield or shading enough to shift project economics. So that's why precision matters.
Yeah,
every bit of detail on the site can affect it. It's especially when the market gets as competitive as it is now. The small details everywhere, from grading to topology to the type of panel you are using, the table sizes that you are using, all of that will affect the constructibility, it will affect the cost of the site, it will affect yield, it will affect multiple things.
I'd say as well, at Solarport, we always say that we are not the cheapest system, but we're the best value, because we will put that engineering behind it. There's always going to be cheaper, someone that can just deliver something standard, but what we want to make sure is that it lasts. It's gonna stay for that design life, and that we've looked at this site thoroughly to make sure that it meets the requirements.
I love to hear that. So I think clients are coming to you with more and more requirements, and you've already mentioned the corrosion assessment and pull-out testing and deeper layout optimization. But how would you say that those requirements have shifted the way that you approach project planning?
So now we request that all of this is provided to us before we issue any kind of binding quote, because it means that we have the trust and loyalty that that system is going to work. If we don't have some of those elements, we would be providing something that we're not sure is going to work. So making sure that we've got all of that beforehand, it's our trust, it's the trust in the customer, and that's what keeps them coming to us. And I think just in making sure that it's structurally sound, designed for the specific ground conditions that are on that site. There's so many sites now that just are, one site could have two different fields that are completely different. One will have, need ballast. One might have really high corrosion, and there's so many things that you need to consider in that project planning. And one of the ones that we've mentioned again is the corrosion assessment. It's so vital, because the ground changes throughout the years. It will have different properties, again, from field to field. So that's why we take it so seriously, and we liaise with our steel suppliers and make sure that the thickness or the coating that's provided, again, will be accurate for a site-specific job.
So I definitely agree with Alice on that. The other thing is that one of the crucial things that we do with our customers is that when they send us documents for a binding quotation and for us before we sign a contract, if the quality of the documents that we received is not up to a certain standard that we will require, we will always make sure that the customer knows that the quality of the data is not sufficient for what they are trying to build. Because from one side, one might think of it, and I actually saw some of our competitors actually think using that way, which is the customer just sent us the documents. It's not our liability because in the contract we just work on whatever they send us. But this is not how we work, and I don't think it aligns with our company values. Instead, we want the success of the site as much as the customer as well wants it. And through this, we will require from the customer before signing any binding contracts or sending any quotes to send us the up-to-date and the up-to-standard documents.
I think just touching on what Seif said then, we are so passionate about what we do. And again, some people might say, this is not our liability, but we're proud of what we do. We're proud of what we build, and we wouldn't want to see it fall down either. So we want to make sure we're investing in it.
I love how you both frame that. It's really not about bureaucracy. It's about building confidence, and so requiring those reports up front protects both the developer and the manufacturer. So it's kind of risk reduction through diligence.
Yeah,
it's easy to think of these tests as technical hurdles, but I think they're really all about long-term performance and peace of mind. And from your experience, what are the most common pitfalls that you see in early project planning?
I'd say not having a solid understanding of the site beforehand. There's a lot of sites and developers and EPCs now where, sites are available, and if they haven't had that understanding before they maybe procure that site, they'll come to find these technical difficulties later. And that's why, I'll say it again, but why everything pre-install is so important, getting that understanding of the ground and what's in the ground. Is it rock? Is it sand? Is it peat? There's so many different possibilities, and knowing that beforehand is just crucial. And, also understanding whether there's any archaeological restrictions, what utilities are on site. Sometimes you might have to build around those utilities, or there might be some restrictions again, or there's unsuitable soil conditions. So really just fully understanding the site before you go into any sort of planning will always pay off.
Yeah, some of this might sound like ABCs for constructing a site, but trust me when I say that some of the projects, sometimes they get they discover that there are some archaeological sites by luck while they're installing, or some areas of like natural habitat, protected natural habitat. So yeah, definitely early surveys is very important.
And it's crazy as well. Something that really surprised me when I started looking at sites is the like, badgers or newts or like animals like that will fully stop a site being built, which is just crazy. There's just so many things that could affect it. So making sure is just the most important.
I agree. I think this one really hits home. I think every developer has learned the lessons the hard way at least once. Not knowing site conditions early can really derail months of progress later. And as you mentioned, I think the UK has definitely no shortage of underground surprises. So archaeological sites, drainage issues, and as you said, even old infrastructure. So I think that extra site diligence upfront is really worth its weight in steel. And you're working both in the UK and also in the broader EU market, right?
Yeah. So we've started expanding this year into the EU market.
I was going to ask you, how do the design practices and standards differ between the two regions? And do you expect them to converge, or will regional differences always stay strong?
So no two countries are the same. No two fields are the same. But what the overall approach to a design will, be relatively similar, but the local standards will always change, and different countries will use different approaches. Things like wind speeds, snow loads, seismic loads, they'll differ from country to country. Whereas in England, we don't have earthquakes, but in somewhere like Turkey, you will have a higher likelihood to have one. So, you've really got to look into the different variabilities between countries. And some countries also have different requirements when it comes to the actual documentation. So in Italy, for example, they require an Italian structural engineer to sign off on their report. So having an understanding on these countries as well is crucial when you're going into different new regions. So although the practices are becoming more aligned, regional requirements will always remain distinct.
So that's a great perspective. It sounds like things were moving towards shared best practices, but with the regional identity still mattering and being in place. And obviously, especially when there's climate and soil conditions that vary so much. I didn't realize that Italy required sign-off from a local licensed engineer. That's really a good example of how nuanced these differences can be. So I know that Solarport has been investing in AI to increase operational efficiency and reduce costs. Would you mind sharing a bit about how you're using it and what kind of impact you've expected it to have?
We are investing in AI. We are looking at AI use cases all the time. The most important or the areas that we look into is to how to eliminate repetitive tasks. And we do this through either automation of processes between departments, can increase communication between departments through AI and automation. And the second thing is to sustain our high quality standards for engineering documents. One of the use cases is, for example, that we discovered is that we can have a library of drawings that we can upload it to a certain model that is just made for us. And then we can later on, while we finish, for example, engineering drawings or any documentation, we can add another layer of check by running it through that model to give us any red flags for issues before we progress it to the other life cycles that we have before we release it, for example, to a customer or to get built. So that's one of the use cases that we concentrate on for AI. The second thing is also it gives us improved data accuracy and speed. Through this, we connected our databases to also some of the AI models. Anyone in the company can ask any question regarding our system. What is the most popular, for example, type of panel that is being used, or what is the most popular tilt angle that customers is using? And this helps us a lot in, for example, our innovation department while we are trying to innovate different systems, different configurations. We can now target, I think, the most common systems or configurations with better systems and leave the other ones for a bespoke design, which will also save us time. And all of that will improve efficiency. It will add a lot more to the cost saving effort that we do. And later on, the cost savings will be transferred and passed on to the customers. So it's a win-win for everyone.
I really like that you mentioned passing those savings on to customers.
Yeah.
It's really a smart way to think about AI. And I'm glad that you've managed to incorporate it as a tool to really remove frictions in your workflows. Automating those repetitive, heavy tasks, and especially the data-heavy tasks, really mean that engineers get to spend more time in problem solving. So that's really great to hear. How do you see AI balancing with the human side of design and client relationships? Where do you think that tech adds value, and where do you think that the human touch remains essential?
I think AI excels at pattern recognition and speed of the actual recognition of the pattern. Engineers bring context, judgment, and creativity. So this is the main part that differentiates between AI and human-led interactions and creativity.
I'd say on my side, obviously being very customer facing is we also recognize that client relationships are and trust are human led. That cannot be done through AI. And again, going back to some of our values, we care deeply and we want our customers to trust us. Anything that we do will always be human led, and it's AI should be used as a co-pilot to help us with the engineering or the, repetitive tasks that Seif mentioned, and not as a replacement of an actual human. Yeah, so I think, although AI can be helpful, we are very, very aware that, that human relation and the human aspect of it is also so crucial.
Beautifully said. AI might analyze 1,000 scenarios in seconds, but it can't read a client's tone and understand their risk tolerance or sense when someone's uneasy about a design choice. So I think, as you said, that empathy layer is really where the humans is the.
Yeah, definitely. Having an industry like this, it's a lot of money. There's a lot of big sites going up, and so that trust and loyalty will come from a customer relation.
I love your idea as AI as a co-pilot. It's really not about replacing engineers. It's more about giving them superpowers.
Exactly.
So looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of solar design and manufacturing?
I love that every site offers a new challenge. There's no two sites are the same. I learn something new every day. You're constantly learning. a single project can have so many differences. I think I said this earlier, but one might need, a ballasted solution. One might need piles. You might need to, amend a certain way of designing it. The industry in general is constantly moving. It's constantly growing, and it's feeling to be a part of it and growing with it.
Yeah, definitely. And from my side, what excites me the most is our innovation department. So we invest heavily in innovation. And to most of the customers who have visited our booth in solar and storage, they probably have seen some of our projects that we are working on in innovation. The two most exciting projects is our tracker system. We have sourced literally the best materials that we can get out of for trackers, from the motor to the algorithms that we can to control the tables, and we are planning to introduce our tracker system to the market next year, hopefully by the end of Q1 2026. So this is one of the most exciting projects we are working on. The second one is carports. Carports as well are huge, and it's one of also the very exciting projects that we are working on, especially because the recent legislations are now in favor for building carports in every car park that are more than a certain size. So this as well is helping us, and yeah, I love our innovation process, how we sit down, brainstorm ideas, and just open the drawing board, you know what I mean, and build something from scratch.
That really is a great mindset, seeing every project as a chance to learn and innovate. The mention of hybrid sites with ballast in one field, piles in another, it just sort of gives us an idea of how dynamic projects have become. And then hearing that Solarport is exploring trackers and carports is really exciting. It's again a reminder as well that even in a mature market, there's so much more room to innovate.
Yeah, definitely. And to add as well to the difference between sites, I think nowadays it's not only limited to, let's say, for example, different foundations or different embedments or different table sizes, but also different types within the table sizes. So let's say, for example, a 2x24 table. On some of the like ANSYP projects, we design 6, 7 variants of the same exact table. Some of them can have the first two bays, for example, with different thicknesses for the parts. Someone else will have some with different like wind bracings or extra parts that are placed strategically for some areas, because just this granular savings on that scale will save the customer hundreds, and in some cases maybe it can go up to £1 million on a project, which is huge.
A lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money.
For sure, for sure. And as we were saying before, the larger the projects get, then obviously you need to accommodate for different soil and different ground situations. And
Exactly.
again, the more competitive and the more projects that are out there, then you will be faced with having to accommodate with this type of hybrid projects.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you could change one thing about how developers approach planning and design today, what would that be?
I might sound like a broken record at the end of this podcast, but again, do the groundwork early, get the investigations done, know your site, complete the pull-out testing, make sure that they are comprehensive. You're not just checking one embedment's depth, you're checking at multiple depths, and just, it just saves so much time. We can't reiterate it enough, and costs down the line. Nobody likes surprises, especially when it comes to having to spend more money. So just do it up front, because the costs beforehand are so much less than the cost that could come afterwards. And I'd also say, having a stronger control over the procurement process, just to ensure that the correct specification of equipment that a developer will be managing for the next upcoming 40 years is in place. It's a big, it's a long time. It's just making sure that those are in place and that they feel confident in them is vital.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely the first thing as well is that not to cheap out on surveys. Survey quality matters. That's the one thing. Second thing is, as Alice said, more control over procurement. Some of the developers, especially the smaller ones, they might choose the lowest quote that they get from, for example, an EPC, and that EPC quoted it, sent a quote that low because they procured the lesser quality items, and then They will deliver the project, it will get signed off, and then it will pass on to asset management, and then they will start having issues there. So that's why we have we want to mention to have like a stronger control over procurement is very important. Yeah, and that's it.
That's really such practical.
Yep. And the last thing as well that we wanted to mention is to come to us as early as possible when you are selecting site, when you're doing any site selection, because the sooner you get to us, the better we can give you our advice on soil, on embedments, on topology. Because let's say, for example, if a site is very close to the grid connection point, it looks really good on paper. If later on we did our pull-out test and we did our investigations and turns out that we need 4-meter embedment piles, the cost will be similar to having a site in North Africa and you want to connect it, for example, to a grid in the UK. The cost will increase considerably. It can increase 20-30% when it comes to mounting systems, especially on that embedments. So yeah, that's one thing also to add.
That comment of it looks good on paper, I'm sure. It's a common thing. I was going to say that I think it's really good practical advice, especially coming from the perspective of someone who's seen what happens when diligence is skipped. So getting the groundwork done early really sets the tone for everything that follows. And the note on the procurement, I also think it's spot on because developers are managing assets that will live for decades. So choosing the right components now, it's a decision that it will go on. It will impact the next 40 years.
Exactly, yeah.
Alice and Seif, thank you both for joining us and giving us such a thoughtful look at the world of solar mountain systems, from layout design and data-driven planning to AI innovation and especially customer care. It is really clear that this part of the process is becoming more strategic and more exciting than ever.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Anna.
So if anyone wants to connect with you, where may they find you?
So LinkedIn, it's always, we try and keep our LinkedIn profiles as high as possible. So obviously I'd be Alice Thomas on LinkedIn.
Yep, same thing, Seif Gomaa, LinkedIn. And also make sure to follow our company page, Solarport. We are very active on LinkedIn. You'll find us doing multiple events. We go as well to do some fun stuff. One of the things that we've done lately is a raft race that we collaborated on. It's like a 150-year-old tradition here in Dorset, and every year we make sure that we enter it. We design a raft from scratch, and this year actually we won the race, which is also amazing. So yeah, make sure you follow us.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing, Seif. I think our audience will love to follow that as well.
Yep, great. Thanks, Anna.
Thanks again, both.
Thank you for listening. What Matters is powered by PVKs, the platform trusted by solar professionals around the globe. If you never want to miss out on insights that keep solar projects moving forward, make sure you follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested in learning more about streamlining your solar project needs, visit pvks.com for more info. Until next time.